Hello everybody, and welcome to today's Sunday sermon, which is the 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Today we have two great stories. One is the Good Shepherd who goes looking for the lost sheep, and the second one is the loving Father, originally recognized as the prodigal son. And I'll explain why we would prefer that the story really is about the loving Father. We will understand these parables more fully if we remember that the strict Jews said there will be joy in heaven over one sinner who is obliterated before God. So Jesus told him the parable of the lost sheep and the shepherd's joy. The shepherds in Judea had a hard and dangerous task. Pasture was very severe and it was scarce. If a sheep was lost, the shepherd must at least bring home the fleece to show how it had died. Many of the flocks were communal flocks, belonging not to individuals but to villages. There would be 2 or 3 shepherds in charge. Those whose flocks were safe would arrive home on time and bring news that the one shepherd was still up on the mountains searching for a sheep that was lost. The whole village would be out on watch, and when in the distance they saw the shepherd striding home with the lost sheep across his shoulders, there would rise from the whole community a shout of joy and of thanksgiving. That is the picture Jesus drew of God. God is as glad when a lost sinner is found as a shepherd is when a strayed sheep is brought home. We look at the lost sheep in the story and we are reminded that the Good Shepherd will stay all night looking for that lost sheep. He will see the tracks that it has made on the pasture, and he will follow that into the night and look and seek and search for him. In the same way, God is seeking and searching for us, that we may turn back to him and seek him. The story of the prodigal son, or as is said now, the loving Father, was also said by Jesus. It was by no means unusual for a father to distribute his estate before he died if he wished to retire from the management of affairs. But there is a certain heartless callousness in the request of the younger son. He said, in effect, "Give me now the part of the estate I will get anyway when you are dead, and let me get out of this." The father did not argue. He knew that if the son was ever to learn, he must learn the hard way, and he granted his request. Without delay, the son realized his share of the property and left home. He soon ran through the money and he finished up feeding pigs, a task that was forbidden to a Jew because of the law. And the law said, "Cursed is he who feeds swine." Jesus believed that man was never essentially himself until he came home to God. So the son decided to come back home and be taken not as a son, but in the lowest rank of slaves, the hired servant, the men who were only day laborers. That's what he was expecting. The ordinary slave was in some sense a member of the family, even though he wasn't paid, and he was still a slave, or she. But a hired servant could be dismissed at a day's notice. He was not one of the family at all. So he came home in accordance to the best Greek text. His father never gave him a chance to make that plea. He broke in before he could even start that conversation. The robe he was given stands for honor, the ring for authority. So the son was welcomed back into the family as a son and as a member, with a power of attorney and with every right in all the decisions that would be made in the family's business especially. This parable should never have been called the prodigal son, for the son is not the hero. It should be called the parable of the loving father, for it tells us rather about the father's love than the son's sin. It tells us much about the forgiveness of God. The father must have been waiting and watching for the son to come home, for he saw him a long way off. When he came, he forgave him with no recriminations. There is a way of forgiving when forgiveness is conferred as a favour. It is even worse when someone is forgiven, but always by hint and by word and by threat. His sin is held over him. It is the wonder of the love of God that he treats us like that. This is not the end of the story. There enters the elder brother, who was actually sorry that his brother had come home. He stands for the self-righteous Pharisee, who would rather see a sinner destroyed than saved. Certain things stand out about him. His attitude shows that his years of obedience to his father had been years of grim duty and not of loving service. His attitude is one of utter lack of sympathy. He refers to the prodigal not as any brother, but as your son. He was the kind of self-righteous character who would cheerfully have kicked a man further into the gutter when he had already been down. He had a peculiarly nasty mind. There is no mention of harlots until he mentions them. He no doubt suspected his brother of the sins he himself would have liked to commit. The closeness of that family has been broken by the younger son's departure from the father's home, and the elder son's estrangement, even though he still lives at his father's house. The father's love and efforts at reconciling bring unity to the parable. So what we are learning of extraordinary love and forgiveness of God. This is who God is. The Father is God. Even with the motivation like the young son is not pure for returning, the Father doesn't even mind, he doesn't even ask. He brings us back with tremendous love. May God bless you to have a lovely day this day, and may you have a grace-filled week ahead.